Hi, Kevin. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all.
So, as you said, my name's Kevin Hart. I am an analytical method development scientist at Cook Myocyte currently. And my education is in molecular biology and biotechnology. I got my undergraduate degree at Clarion University and my PhD at Penn State University in immunology and infectious diseases, where I studied mechanisms behind malaria transmission.
Amazing. You look very young. I'm very impressed you did all that in this young age. Good job. My first question is, lately it's in the talks a lot, especially in our industry, in the film industry right now with the strikes and everything. As a scientist, what do you think of AI right now? What do you foresee as a scientist? What's AI going to bring humanity? Goodness and evil.
So I see AI as something that can be extremely helpful if well controlled. So the current uses of AI, for example, the current ones that are just for general purpose use out on the internet, answering people's questions, writing people's essays for them. There appear to be some fatal flaws in the technology in that it currently is unable to determine fact from fiction. So it can make up an entire story for you, and it can be great at making up a completely fictitious story about anything that you want it to, but that's not going to get you an A on a paper or something. And in the same way, it's not going to put a man on the moon again or something like that, because it can only rely on the information that it's given. And if it's not given the right information, then a lot of these AIs will make up information. So I think that it can be dangerous for general purpose use, but I think that it also can be extremely helpful. If you have an AI train on a medical data set, for example, you could potentially catch things that humans wouldn't be able to catch. So, for example, you have an AI train on a data set of diseases for an entire hospital group over the last 30 years, you could potentially discover a trend or a pattern that you may not see with just normal clinical epidemiology or an epidemiologist looking at that data set. So I think that it's really powerful, especially with looking at very large data sets and with specific training and specific questions. But general purpose AIs, I think, have the potential to do more harm than good at this point.
Mm-hmm. And, our project is called Searching for Goodness. And we're starting with our very limited means. So we're doing Zoom interviews. We interview whoever we can reach in Los Angeles with some animal rights activists and looking for scientists. We did interview some people in Antarctica because our goal is eventually have enough means to go to Antarctica and interview some scientists who do researches over there. We had one in Cannes, but we want to get more. We want to be able to go there eventually. And you haven't been to Antarctica, but what do you know about Antarctica? What are your thoughts about that? By all scientists being there and doing different kinds of research, whatever you know about Antarctica, I'm curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, so I don't know all that much about Antarctica. I do know that there's currently a lot of impact from climate change in Antarctica. A lot of ice that is melting, and can be the cause of a lot of issues with the reduction in salinity of the water, the changing of habitats for the animal species that migrate to and from and around Antarctica, as well as the changing ocean currents in that region. I think that there's a lot of potential for harm occurring to Antarctica as the Earth continues to warm and the continued ice melt occurs.
Mhm. And can we get your thoughts also on climate change and global warming? I think recently something's going on in Maui. They said it has to do with climate change too, but in general, what are your thoughts on that and what we can do as civilians?
Yeah, so climate change is a really big deal. And so, to sort of say it plainly. So there are, I think corporations and a lot of people try to put the onus on the individual. And while we as individuals can do things to really to help with climate change, we can travel less often. We can buy more efficient vehicles. We can turn our AC units down or up and things like that. But each of those individual things from an individual person is going to have a relatively limited impact. I think that the best things that we can do is use our sort of consumer mentality that we have in America to purchase items that are made sustainably and made with a focus on the earth, and then also to buy locally. So a lot of the fuel or a lot of the emissions that go into making something go into also transporting that thing. So if I'm buying something from China, even though it might be more expensive produced here in America or in locally to me here in where I'm located in Pennsylvania, that item is going to have far less of a carbon footprint likely because it's only being it's not being flown, it's not being shipped across the sea. It's a short drive down the road. So those are things that we can do, but I think the biggest thing that we can do as individuals is pay attention to politics and vote according to our beliefs on that topic. So if you believe climate change is a big deal, we need to get people in office who can make those decisions for us, people who align with our viewpoints on those things. So while we as individuals might not be able to do much, we could have a large influence on selecting an individual who will make these larger decisions to help the government put regulations in place to reduce climate emissions, and to protect the forests and the marshlands and the oceans, which store tons of carbon. And so without the forests and the marshlands and the seas, essentially what happens is we lose all of the ability to reabsorb carbon from the atmosphere. And without that, we're just going to further exacerbate the climate change issue, which is going to result in what we've seen recently with the wildfires in Canada, wildfires across the Western United States, stronger hurricanes, stronger storms, worse droughts. All over the world, we're seeing all of these things now. So while the decision that we make here might seem like it's not a big one, the climate decisions that we make apply to the whole world, and we all need to work together as a planet to resolve these issues. Not one country, not one person is going to be able to have a large impact, but as a society, we can come together and really help to slow or stop global warming and prevent the further destruction of what we know as our climate norms.
I love your answer. That's a really good answer. Thank you. I'll let Armin to ask a few questions. You want to ask?
Yeah, I'm just sorry. So anyway, we didn't have time to get the
we just literally jumped into it, didn't even have our coffee yet. So we're like, wait a minute. I'm a little more woke. I'm used to waking up this
question,
early.
man. Like, I mean, what do you see the direction? Because now that you know, electric cars are like, in the market right now, where do you see the future of the oil industry? Because that's also like affecting our ozone layer.
Absolutely. So the hope is that the oil industry will be, at least in my opinion, reduced in size. And so we're likely not going to get rid of things made with oils completely. A lot of plastics, a lot of things that people use every day, including lubricants that we use in our cars, even in electric cars, are made with oil. And so there's a place on the earth for the oil industry, for continued use of oil, but preferably not burning it and releasing it into the atmosphere. And I think that slowly, hopefully, we can transition away from oil completely with the advances in science, being able to produce plant-based plastics and different technologies for and replacements for the current things that we produce using oil.
One last question. I think we don't need to hold the until 9 because we got good enough information. Unless you have, after this question, if you have any other question, we'll ask one more, and that's good. That's good enough. Because we're really making a short documentary at this point, getting like a bunch of different scientists' point of views, putting it together so it doesn't have to be too long. And your answers are great.
Our answers carry so much
Short
weight.
and on point. I love every answer you gave us. The AI, the climate change, everything's great. I think I want to use all of it as much as possible. The last question is, since our project is called Searching for Goodness, how would you define goodness? Because it's a kind of a subjective thing to everyone. What they understand for goodness is different. And how do you, where goodness is spiritually, scientifically, and how do you think they coexist for you and in the world?
So I see goodness as a state of being. So not just something like being good to another person, that's included, but goodness in caring about each other, caring about the planet, generally doing the best that we can in all aspects of life. So you can have goodness in your friendships, where you care about one another, you care about the decisions that other people make, and you help other people through tough times. You can have goodness in the way that you approach your life, where you are donating your time, you're donating your effort towards bettering people maybe who are less advantaged than you. You can have goodness in let's see, your relationships, your time, your life. So also in helping the planet. So goodness in your life could include advocating for preventing the furthering of climate change, for, if you can afford it, driving an electric car, for voting, something that we can all do, or that most of us can do in America, voting for a person who exemplifies what you see goodness as, someone who is a good person, someone who is advocating for the planet, advocating for others. I think that is the core of goodness, is advocating beyond yourself for other people, for the planet, for especially for people, places, things that can't advocate for themselves. In this case, like Antarctica, which can't advocate for itself, but we can all have a big impact on how Antarctica changes over the next 10, 20, 100, 1,000 years with the decisions that we make today and in the future.
Yeah, protect Antarctica. I always wondered what that means. I mean, there's this picture of a polar bear standing on like a little ice cube or whatever. I kept seeing this picture, but I never really thought it deeply. Then it hit me, or I saw something about it. Yeah, once that melts, the bear is in the water, and if it doesn't have anything to get on, like it's gonna die. So
Right.
yeah, like realizing that and how it's gonna affect all the other animals, and what people don't understand, the butterfly effect. Everyone's like, oh, it's somewhere bottom of the world. Like, what does it have to do with me? It's in California, but you know the butterfly effect, right?
Yes.
How
Yep.
would you define the chaos theory, the butterfly effect?
How
They say, you know, a butterfly flapping its wings somewhere in the world affects like a storm over somewhere in the world. Have you heard that theory? Like,
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So in this case, it could be we could put the butterfly in a effect in the context of Antarctica, right? So we could say that the decisions that we're making as a people here, we'll say in the Northern Hemisphere, America, China, Europe, we're making these decisions to release large amounts of carbon into the atmosphere, which is causing warming. So something that doesn't immediately directly impact Antarctica. A butterfly flapping its wings does not produce a large amount of wind in the same way that, you know, me taking an unnecessary flight across the country doesn't have an immediate impact. But the buildup of all of these emissions is causing climate warming. And in that case, we see this warming, we see the ice melting, which causes sea levels to rise. So there we have another instance where something that we're doing here is causing melting, say, in the Arctic and in Antarctica, which is then years later coming back to impact us because the sea levels are going to rise and the storms are going to increase, which is going to cause migrations of people from areas along the coastline inland. And while those who are well off are going to be able to make that transition, the people who are going to be most impacted are those who are less well off, people who don't have that extra money to be able to sell their house and buy a new one inland somewhere. People who are rooted in these coastal communities. And so we're going to see these migrations inland. And in some places, maybe not so much in America, but in other countries, what's going to happen is we're going to see people moving into what's sort of called untouched wilderness, places where people don't necessarily rule and the animals do. And then we're going to come into contact with those animals more often, and we'll see what we've seen many times before, and we'll likely see many times again, where with my specialty in infectious disease, this is what I think about is we're going to come into contact with these animals. These animals are going to transmit diseases to us that maybe the human population hasn't seen before, and we'll have a pandemic, an outbreak of these diseases occurring. All because of climate emissions that we did here, impacting ice melting in the Arctic and in Antarctica, which are causing mass migrations in, we'll say, countries that don't necessarily have large carbon footprints, especially those in, say, Southeast Asia, where those people are going to move inland. They're going to have a contact with animals that they don't necessarily normally come into contact with. And that's going to cause the potential transmission of disease to those people who That again will then spread. And as we've seen with the COVID pandemic, the virus spreading all across the world, all from potentially one small interaction with an animal. And these things are going to happen more and more migrations, more people moving inland into untouched areas, and likely more pandemics, more disease spread. And it's just going to continue getting worse the further we go and the further we push this.
Very bright future.
But it can be a bright future, right? If we limit our carbon input, our carbon output, sorry, and we reduce the amount of, by reducing the amount of emissions, we're going to reduce the temperature change. We'll reduce the amount of ice melt that occurs, hopefully, which will then prevent a lot of these potential migrations and prevent some of these interactions from occurring. Now, there are things that we can do, we can put into place to prevent a lot of these things or to stop these things, but they take large monetary investments. So we could stop it at the point of the infectious disease and have a lot of disease surveillance, which costs a lot of money to have a lot of people doing disease surveillance all over the world. We could do better with rehousing people who have to move due to the impacts of climate change. We could reduce our emissions and not have to worry about either of those things. There's a lot that we can do to prevent the worst of what could happen from happening, but we need to put in the effort to do it.
Very good. And lastly, do you want to tell us about a little bit more what you do and how you contribute to the goodness of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do here at Cook Myosite is I'm an analytical method development scientist. What that means is I produce all of the tests that eventually get run on our products. So the safety tests to make sure that it's not going to hurt you when you get an injection, the efficacy tests to make sure that it's going to work when we inject it, and all the other tests to make sure that it is going to be safe and effective and a product that is going to be consistent. So the product that you get, the product that your neighbor gets, the product that a person across the country gets are going to behave similarly. What I do is I produce the assays for that. And what we do as a company is we produce autologous muscle-derived cell products that we currently use for 3 clinical trials right now. One for stress urinary incontinence, one for fecal incontinence, and one for tongue dysphagia. So these are, in many cases, what people consider quality of life problems. If you're having an issue with having to go to the bathroom all the time, you tend not to travel as much, you tend not to enjoy life nearly as much because you're afraid to go out, you're afraid to go do things for fear of having an issue. And then those with tongue dysphagia, typically in people with who've previously had head and neck cancer or some sort of tissue degeneration in that area, where the injections are intended to help people restore muscle strength in that area and hopefully restore some quality of life, the ability to eat more solid foods, the ability to swallow better, things like that. And so my contribution to the goodness of the world is in producing methods and techniques that demonstrate safety and efficacy of products that could help a significant number of people around the world.
Okay, very good. Do you have anything else to ask? All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you as well.
so much.
All their answers are on point. If we have any other questions come up, anything, can we contact you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just reach out, send me an email or whatever, and we'll set up another call.
Sounds good. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sorry for making you wake up so early.
Oh,
Oh, no worries. It's good. Early bird does more or something.
it's a great way to start
Early
the
bird
morning.
gets the worm.
Okay.
Well, thanks, guys.
If
Thank
you
you.
ever come to LA, let us know. We'd love to
Okay,
meet you in person too.
of course.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Are you going to be coming to the San Diego thing? I heard there's going to be a San Diego convention. Maybe Nick is
I
going to go.
I am not going to be going to the convention with Nick. No.
All right.
I mean, it's helping the climate, less travel, I guess.
Right. All right.
Let you go. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you
a
so much,
wonderful
sir.
weekend.
Thank you.